Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Come and go.
I've had 2 attempts on my life.
The first attempt, how old were you?
It was just last year, so I was 37.
And the most recent one this year?
Yes, I just started feeling like I didn't want to be here anymore. I started feeling like I was a burden. You get these little alarm bells, you get these little sounds that this isn't right. I aren't feeling well, and especially us blokes, we don't open up. We don't, allow our emotions to flow.
You're listening to The Hurt Locker, a podcast that opens the door on men's mental health. And for tonight's guest, we have Dean Daniel. Dean, welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Thank you very much for having me. Been really looking forward to being involved in this, so I can't wait to share my story, my journey, and what we're doing.
Okay. Unlike other times when we record this and we have a talk and that, I'm going to allow you to start from where you feel comfortable starting. Is that okay?
Yeah, not a problem. So what we can do is, if you want, let's maybe start from the point where I realised that I needed to be here and I needed to fight and put my point over of how serious mental health can be. And no matter what, you've gone through in the past, there's a future. So,
go from wherever. This is our space, to be open, to be candid about the challenges in life.
So I've had 2 attempts on my life. The first one being an overdose and medication, literally taken far too much, and alcohol. That was the first attempt on my life. But the second attempt, which is where we'll start it from, was, how can I call it? A real changing and turning point for me, in terms of why I wanted to be here and what I wanted to achieve, and make sure that the aim for me was to make sure that no one got to the point where I got to. So
before you continue, the first attempt, how old were you?
It was just last year, so I was 37.
And the most recent one this year?
Yes, early March, early this year. So
Thank you.
And it's crazy because I always say this, it spirals so fast. Your mind, your thoughts, how quick you can go from this point of, your feelings and your emotions to spiral into the next stage, where mine was, I just started feeling like I didn't want to be here anymore. I started feeling like I was a burden. Then within weeks, I was openly thinking, how can I not be here? To then spiraling to the next point of planning it and then going ahead with the attempts. So it's really crazy how quick it can happen. And this is one of my main aims now, is to let people know that you get these little alarm bells, you get these little sounds that is that this isn't right. I aren't feeling well, and especially us blokes, we don't open up, we don't allow our emotions to flow, and we keep everything in. And I maybe look at it, and you'll see from our conversation tonight, is that mine's a lot different because it's through pain and chronic pain, but we all end up in that same place, which is that dark, lonely, awful place, which I want to try. We know we can't and never eradicate it, but I want to try and help and support and save as many people from getting to that point as I did.
Okay.
So I'll go into it and I'll be as raw as I can be, because I know that I just want people to relate to me and realize that I always say this, is I'm nothing special. I'm just an average guy from northeast of England and Teesside, Middlesbrough area, who these issues occurred in the past, and that led me to this point, and I never thought it would. So if I want people to look at me and think, do you know what? If he can make it through, then so can I. And that's my aim.
Thank you.
We'll go into it. So it was one evening, and I was just in so much pain. I was struggling. I was on high amounts of medications. I was literally a shell of my former self, and I just had enough. I just said to myself, I'd said, the crisis team were involved and all sorts, but I just did not want to be here anymore and go through this pain, this pressure that I was putting on my family, the burden, it was just horrendous. And I just thought to myself, I need to, in my words, was to check out. And one evening we were sat there with my wife, who at the time was having to supervise me 24/7 to save me from being sectioned. And basically, I'd said to her, do me a quick favor, will you just nip downstairs and grab us a cup of coffee? And she was like, are you sure you're okay? I said, I'm fine, I'm totally fine. The minute she left to go down for a cup of coffee, I'd looked at the window, it was slightly ajar. I managed to stagger myself up, jack the window open, push it, and then I jumped out backwards. And I woke up and I was literally, must have been, I don't know how long I was obviously out for, but by the time I'd woken up, it was like a murder scene. There was sirens flashing, there was air ambulance was there was screams of my wife and my family, the neighbours were out. It was something off like a horror film, I would say. And I remember not being able to move from the neck downwards, just my eyes. And I could just look around and I could hear the devastation. I could see just what I was causing. Now, although I was going through all this pain and me thinking, you know, that my family and loved ones are better off without me, I could see what I was actually doing to them. And I blacked out and I woke back up. I woke up in resus in the hospital, and to the paramedics there, the doctors around me, and my mum came running in, and she was obviously, as you can imagine, past herself and gave me a big cuddle and couldn't believe that I was still here, and was saying, listen, Dean, you're here for a reason. There's no way that you can still be here. There's a path that you need to, and you need to now follow. And at that point, I realized and thought, do you know what? She's right. I mean, we'll go into the story a little bit, shortly, but I fell down the stairs, top to bottom, 5 or 6 times. I've got something now called vasovagal syncope, where I collapse and, due to pain. And I'm literally in agony all the time. But I'm still here. I've had 2 attempts on my life, and I truly believe that she was right. And I'd come home from hospital, and I'd said to my wife, I'd said, listen, I'm gonna fight. I want to be here. I don't want to put you guys through any more pain and suffering. And as it went on, my wife had said to me, can I show you something? And I said, yes. And she said, we've got some CCTV up around the house. And unbeknown to me, was the paramedics had asked her if they could see the footage of that evening when I jumped, and for their records of how I landed in terms of injuries and whatnot. And she said to me, I've got it. Would you like to see it? And as you can imagine, Yinka, I was like, are you joking? And she was like, it's up to you. If you want to see it, it's there. Took me a while, but I thought, you know what, I will. And I looked at this iPad and I brought it up and I just burst out crying. And I said, that was me. To watch yourself go like that, it was just an awful sight. And I just turned to her and I put the iPad down and I said, this stops now. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I can't believe that that's me. Can't believe I've put you through this. I can't believe it. That wasn't my intention to hurt everybody else, but in fact, me doing what I was doing was going to and was. So I said, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to make sure that I'm here, and I'm going to make sure that I, put my awareness out there, put my brand, which is Unbeaten, and make sure that nobody gets to the point where I got to, because I never thought it would ever happen to me. And until that moment happens, it's just the worst place you can imagine. And that's how I ended up founding Unbeaten and doing all my keynote speaking and everything from there.
We'll talk about that in a minute, but when you fell backwards out of the bedroom, how far did you fall?
It was a 2-floor building. It was in my bedroom. So standard house, 2-floor, top window.
And at that moment, your intention was to die.
Yeah. And it hurts me to say it now, but it was at that second I had nothing left. I just felt the pain was too much. The stress was too much of my family. There's a lot going on, and I was a burden, and they were better off without me. And
you've used that word burden 3-4 times so far, and just in the intro and that. And I always smile because I love that word. because it's like metaphorically, it enables me to explore, to discuss, to dig deeper when people use that kind of language, because I know the distress that they're in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
How long were you in hospital for?
Well, I've been in hospital a lot over these last 8 years. I've been in a lot of times. I've had 9 spinal surgeries, and that's a lot that's gone on. But I was in the first time you mean when I attempted my life?
Yes.
I was only in for a couple of days, but after that they wanted to section me, because I really wasn't well. But because of my chronic pain and because of my back issues, and it wasn't the correct environment for me to be put into. So
Okay.
a plan was put in place with my wife to literally lock the house down, and it will be turned basically into a secure unit. But that occurred the first time, or after my first attempt, you see, because again they wanted to section me then, and she fought and fought to keep me out, because as much as I knew I wasn't well, and I knew I really, you hear these stories, but I was ready. I did not want to be here. It was too much pain. There was too much suffering, and although I knew that, at that level I was at, I did need help, but I also knew that that would also make my mental health and my physical health deteriorate rapidly as well. You don't have your own bed. I've got my own, support bed at the moment, which lifts me up and gets me out of bed and whatnot. And I wouldn't have had all those luxuries, which in turn I believe, and I am assuming that the hospital agreed with that. I'd be put in a situation which would help make me deteriorate. So.
The chronic pain, how long's that been going on for?
Since 2008, I had my first spinal surgery in 2018.
Okay.
And like I've said there, I've had 9 spinal surgeries since, consisting of major surgeries to injections. I've had a computer built into me to try and shut the nerve pain off. I'm on 36 tablets a day, oxycodone, tapentadol, tramadols, diazepam, pregabalins, you name it, I've been on it. And it just takes its toll. It just literally eats away at you. And I used to be a 200-meter runner. I was running for
Okay.
club country. So I was at the top of my game. I was
You have
aiming,
peaked, yeah.
yeah, so I was aiming for medals at the Olympics. I was on programs that were designed for athletes to be medaling at the next Olympic Games. I was competing at the highest level, and I was loving what I was doing. And then I was training, I was fit. So I'd gone from that to looking at this person that, only 6 months ago, 9 months ago, say, I hated what I could see in the mirror. I just didn't like it. That wasn't me. I turned into, and I always say this to people, it was a zombie. It was just a shell of myself. I was just existing and not being how we were talking about burden, I was not being that husband I wanted to be. I've got 2 amazing children. I wasn't the dad that I wanted to be. I wasn't the son. I wasn't the friend. It was just too much. And it was just I just turned into this person that I thought, that isn't me. And this isn't me, who I never imagined my life to look like this.
Can I just go right back to the beginning when you said to the missus, go and get me a cup of coffee?
Mm.
Have you ever spoke about that? Does she suspect that you were up to something?
No, never. Do you know, so I had the crisis team involved, and my crisis team, where we were absolutely amazing. Like, honestly, Yinka, I've heard so many bad reports about them, but the support I got was just second to none. But they did obviously warn my wife that he really wasn't well. They'd put me on medications. I wasn't sleeping because of pain. Even all the amounts of medication I was on, I still couldn't sleep. Whereas if not anyone else would take it, they'd just be knocked out.
Yeah.
They couldn't believe the amount of medication I was on, that for me to say, look, I can't sleep. And so then they were trying to put me on like sleeping medication, and because I was having crazy insomnias, and it was just out of this world. And so she knew I wasn't well, and I'd said certain things. We're really close, my wife and I, and I'd openly said, I'm feeling like this. She I wouldn't even say, she found me one day, and I'll tell you, she found me one day. I'd gone downstairs, and I mean, I struggled to even get up and down the stairs now, but I'd gone downstairs and I was just out the way of everyone. And I remember, luckily, the dog wasn't in it, but there was my dog bed was there, and I remember just kicking this dog bed, shouting and screaming, and then just bursting out crying. And as I did it, she came down the stairs, and she was like, What's wrong?" And I was like, "I just can't do this anymore. Can't live like my life like this. I'm not doing it." And then that's how we got the crisis team and everything involved. So she knew I wasn't well. She's had to pull me off my balcony roof we've got out the back of our house, because she found me out there one morning. She's pulled me back in and was like, "What are you doing?" So she knew I wasn't in a good place, but she, in terms of, thinking, could you do this? Could you do that? In her eyes, and you know what? Bless her, she was amazing. The whole family were. I was watched like a hawk, 24 hours a day. I know she wasn't sleeping. I know, and if she wasn't sleeping, there was people coming in and checking me. So they all knew how poorly I was, but they didn't. I don't actually think they knew. And because of the house, because they've taken all the tablets off me, all my tablets were taken off me and put in a secure place out the way. I was obviously, every time I was, going to the toilet or going for a shower, I was like, "Are you okay? What are you doing in there, bro?" So
Yeah,
everything was I
yeah.
don't think that she knew that I was at that point where I would jump out that window. And it breaks my heart now, because deep down, she'll never admit to it, but I think she always will think, "Oh, why didn't I know you would do the window?" Yet she would never even, you would never even contemplate that. You would never even think about that, would you?
Of course, of
In
course.
a normal situation. But so yeah,
How I'm just thinking now the toll it's took on you as a couple, as a family in that. How has that been to manage that?
well, it's crazy, because I've also had to have two private surgeries done, which, as you can imagine, were not cheap. We've had to remortgage the house. We've had to, I always say this: beg, borrow, steal from family members, friends, whatever else, to try and get these surgeries done, because otherwise I wouldn't be walking. Um, we've had to, my wife's lost two jobs through it, because she's had to stay and support me and didn't want to leave my side. Um, you've got you've just got the side of just being a dad, and just being a husband, and just being someone around the family to protect you, to love you, to be, me. And I wasn't that person. So that took its toll. It took a toll on my friends. So my social life just non-existent. I didn't want to go out.
You isolated yourself.
Yeah. And because I've got vasovagal syncope now, which I can go into with you, is that was embarrassing. So because I could just collapse. So if we'd go out and say, "Do you know what? Come on, let's make an effort and let's go out for something to eat to try and help my mind,"
Hmm.
then I'd end up collapsing in a restaurant, and paramedics would be called, and it would be just this big drama, which I hate. It's not me. So then that took its toll, because then you've lost that you've lost that relationship. Then you've lost that, the bond with my children. They're my son's a little bit older and he got it, but my daughter was, at the time, is 8 or 9 year old, and she just wanted a dad. She'd be like, "Daddy, can we do this, Daddy?" And I was so unwell that I was either locking myself up in the room because I couldn't move, I couldn't, and then it was, "Can we do this, Dad?" Or can we? I just couldn't, because I was just in too much pain, and then my mind was just going in crazy places.
Before you had attempted, had you known other people who'd struggled with their mental health? Were you
No,
aware of others? Or
so
who died by suicide even?
yeah, so this is the thing. So, and it actually hurts me to say it now, and it makes me feel a little bit sick. So, I live in, like I said to you earlier, I live in the northeast of England, and we, in Middlesbrough, the Teesside area, we have if not the highest suicide rate within the whole of the UK.
You did until this year.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so and that is just an horrendous statistic. And so I knew, so I'd lost a couple of people who we knew, either through school or through the area. And you'd see it on social media, wouldn't you? And you'll see these posts come up, and young guy or young female, have lost their life by, suicide, and this has happened to them. And do you know what? If you'd have asked me 10 years ago, I would have probably looked at them posts and gone, do you know what? How can that person do that? They've got a lovely family there. They've got an amazing wife, 2 kids, 3 kids, whatever else it be. I don't get it. I didn't understand it. And it was happening more and more in our area. And we were like, what's going on? And I never got it. I'll be honest, Yinka. I never understood it. And I never took it, not seriously, but I never thought how can
It
that
could
happen? How
come,
can someone
yeah.
do that?
And you never thought it could come to your door
Yeah,
even.
yeah. And it does. And it's crazy because although you see these things on the TV and on social media, it doesn't feel real because it's not your circle involved, or it's not yourself, or it's your group around you who you might go and sit and have a couple of beers with or a coffee with or whatever. So I never really, not that I didn't take it seriously. I didn't understand the whole aspect of it. It's strange, but I knew it was happening, and it was happening more and more.
And when it visited your door, how easy was it for you to, when you were struggling with your mental health, how easy was it for you, or how challenging was it for you to put your hand up and say, help, I need some support?
See, it wasn't, and this is the problem. This is why I do what I do, because especially us blokes, we think, do you know what? We're okay with this macho guy. We don't need to we don't need to show our emotions. We don't need to cry. We don't need to ask for help. We don't need the support. We'll just get on with it, and it'll be okay tomorrow. And I used to go into the bathroom, and I'd shut the door, turn the shower on, and I'd just cry my eyes out, and I'd be sat in the toilet just in agony and just not knowing what to do, where to go, and who to talk to. It was just a real dark time. And then I'd turn the shower off, I'd rinse my face over, dab my eyes, and come back out, and I was trying to be Dean again, Dad, whoever else. And it took a lot. It took a lot for me to then say to my wife, and that was the moment that I said, I just can't do it anymore. Like, can't be here. And she'd said to me, listen, what you need to do is we need to ring the doctors, and you need to tell them exactly how you're feeling. And I said, I'm not talking to no specialist, no doctor, no whatever else, because they can't take this pain, these thoughts, these feelings away from me. I didn't get it. I just did not understand it. And she said, please just do it. And I always laugh about it because you don't want to argue with the missus, do you? It's only going to cause you more grief. So I just thought, oh God, you know what? I'll just go with it, and I'll just go. And we went to the doctors, and hence they referred me straight to the crisis team. And the crisis team, I said to you,
Straight away.
yeah, because I knew honestly, I really wasn't well. And the crisis team were at my door within 3 hours of that referral. They were there.
Wow.
They were
Wow.
absolutely amazing, and they were there with me for the first 3 weeks every day, even over Christmas and New Year. When I first started to feel these feelings and thoughts, they were there. They were like, "We'll come at Christmas Day if you want. We'll come and you." And it was like, they were amazing.
Tell me, you say that they were amazing. And yeah, we've heard some horror stories, but the NHS, they're so underfunded, under-resourced, but the people in there do an amazing job. And
Yeah, and there's
they're not there to make money, because the wages are crap. Let's be honest about it. For what they do, the wages are crap.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the human beings that care,
yeah,
you
and
know.
there were, and especially that side of the NHS side, which I never thought I would ever encounter. You don't. Honestly, they were amazing, and I say amazing. I I didn't get it. Like I said to you there, I didn't understand how speaking to somebody who would come into my house, sit there, and talk to me, and me tell them that, "Do you know what? I actually don't want to be here. I want to do this, this, and this," and just sitting there, and then them just go and open up and talk to me, and how much it would actually help. And
Powerful.
it is. And I mean, I never understood it. And then the first nurse came, and she sat with me, and we went through stuff, and I was just as close as I am to my wife, and as close as I am to my parents. There was thoughts and there was feelings that were going through my mind that I could never tell her, because then she would be she was panicking as it was, but it would take it to a different level. And that was what I was living with every day. So when I had this support come to me, and they would just sit there and just, Dean, so come on, how are you feeling today? What's been going on? What about what's happening with your meds? Let's plan a different medication route. Let's plan, you know, okay, and some of the tactics they had, well, I look back now and I think that was really clever. Like, they were putting little things into me, and I think, "You got me there," you know what I mean? It was like, but I look back and I think it saved me. This is the thing though,
Absolutely.
it did, and people out there who don't think it will, it will ever happen to them, and then you think, well, if that does happen, do you know what? Should I reach out? No, I won't bother, because what's John, who's sitting on the sofa, going to help me? How is he going to help me? Trust me, it's amazing.
It's interesting you say that, because, 3/4 of the suicides that occurred, the people weren't known to mental health services.
Yeah,
So that tells me, say, 3/4 of the 7,055 who died last year by suicide that were registered as suicide, 3/4 of them did not engage with mental health services, and how life could have been so different.
yeah, and it goes down to that point of, well, I didn't need to, or they can't help me, or what's that person going to do to help me? And I hold my hands up and I say, yeah, that was me, because it was like, how can you, if you've got a magic wand and you're going to come in and drop it over me and take my back pain away, then yeah, come on, come in, and we'll all have a go. But it wasn't going to be like that in my mind. It was going to be that someone is going to have to come and sit there, and I'm going to have to basically open myself up to you, and nothing's going to change.
How did that feel, opening up? Because I always think that part and parcel of when somebody's in distress, it's it's partly because they're alone, they're
Mm,
isolated, and then
yeah,
what the talking does is offer,
a release.
like, a release, but also a connection as well, that
Yeah,
you get it.
yeah, definitely. I've said it there. I was close, and I can speak to my wife about things, and we do. But there's, like you say, there's certain things that you can't. So I did. I still felt alone. I still felt like, this is only me that this is happening to. Are these thoughts, are these feelings normal? Like, when someone's not well, I mean, I went into places where I was visualizing myself doing something, and it was so clear. Like, honestly, it was so clear. And I couldn't then open up and say to my loved ones, though, this is this. I knew the area where I could go and do certain things, and I won't go into too much detail. But it was like, and I sat down with the nurses, and I actually just said, it took me a few days, I'll be honest, to open up fully. But then when I got to my nurse, she was amazing, she's called Nicole, and I can't thank her enough. She's just brilliant.
Shout out
Uh,
to Nicole.
yeah, shout out to Nicole, that's it. But she sat there and she just got it, and I got it. And what you're saying there about that connection, I felt like I was comfortable. I was confident that she knew exactly what I was saying, what I was doing, and was looking out for me. And we literally just opened up, and she could sit there, and she just got me, and I felt so comfortable. And I could tell her, like I say, listen, I'm feeling like this, and as brutal and as honest as it was, she would sit there and say, it's okay, we got this. You've got this. And she said, you're not alone. There's not just you who feels like this. There's not just you who's thinking like this. And I gradually started to understand it, that actually what they're doing here is amazing. It's nothing words. There's no other words for it, because,
Mhm.
and if people could get to that point and do where either themselves or a loved one or a friend says, listen, go and speak to someone, because it will help, then that's, like you say, the statistics hopefully will start to drop. But I honestly think, because people don't get to that point, and they don't want to get to a point where they want to open up, then they're just going and doing it. And like, it's awful. It's
Do you
awful.
think, just as you were saying that, and we know that from the last stat, that, yeah, there's been a little drop, but men are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than
Yeah.
women. What needs to change for us as men? I see spaces opening up here, there, and everywhere for guys to talk and that, but it feels like there needs to be something much more,
Yeah.
a societal shift.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, and I'm now an ambassador for Tough to Talk, with an amazing organisation, charity, and they're going around, and we go around like organisations and start to educate and do talks and awareness of, it's okay. It used to be just man up, just man up. but it's okay to like to shift and be able to, to speak to people and to be educated from the a little bit of a different level and a different environment. So I think it's a mixture of everything. It's about being educated about it, because even when I go around now and I do my talks throughout the UK, well, and I've been a global now, is people, when you say the word, mental health or suicide, the frown, the you can feel it. It's the uncomfortableness in the room. People are like,
Yes.
it's just like someone's just come in and whatever and screamed something, and everyone's gone, what's going on? It's and the stigma around it it is just shocking. And without society changing, and yeah, like I mean, I've got my own men's mental health groups now, and I'm doing all my talks, and we'll go into my brand and stuff shortly. But it's like there's so many different areas that there's a load of amazing people out there that are doing the same. And but it has to all come, there has to be a change, and where that change comes from. I always say this, I love to collaborate and do things like this with people and to spread the awareness and break the stigma around mental health and suicide. But we've all got to come together, and it's power of numbers, isn't it? And be like, you know
Absolutely.
what, come together, because we unite and we're going to be a lot stronger. And whether that's us guys from an advocate side, from an ambassador side, to right up to the government side, things do need to change, because otherwise, unfortunately, life's getting hard. Society is,
Life is hard.
it's not just about, I always say it's not just about financial now, though. It's just the stresses of life and what society is doing to us, and I always say this about us blokes again, because like you just said, the statistics there and men is, we have to just break that of, I'm not this macho. Like I used to be 18 and a half stone of muscle. I was big, strong bloke. And if it can happen, that can happen to me. And I can now show you that, look, although I'm not the person I was, and actually, although I've gone through this, what I've gone through, it's made me the man I am today now, which is, I'm more, I look at people and I feel more and got more emotions to people, and I understand more, and I want to help more. And I want to, I empathize a lot with people as the situations, whereas maybe 10, 15 years ago, I maybe didn't. I looked at life like differently, and I love life now, and I want to. Although I'm still struggling, and I'm still passing out, and I'm still in a lot of pain, I want to be here, and I want to be here not just for me, not just for my family, but to help, and as many other people as I can. But it's a tough life.
Of course it is. Question about your emotions. You mentioned a little bit before about going into the bathroom, turning the tap on and crying, and you were doing that in silence.
Mm.
Would you do it in public? Cry?
But yeah, but this is it. This is it now. This is what especially as males feel like we can't do. We feel like, well, that wrong? I can't go and cry. I can't go and feel open up into you, or open up to the world, and be like, because that looks like I'm weak. That looks like I'm vulnerable. That looks like but it's actually the complete opposite for me.
Absolutely.
If
Absolutely.
you go out there and say, like, so I always say this on my talks, and I laugh about it, but I might as well, I feel like I can go into a room wherever I am, whether there's 10 people or 1,000 people in this room. And I always say, I might as well come up here on this stage, strip off, and just show bare all, and just show that's how vulnerable I'll be, because I'm giving you my story in the hope that I'm going to help one person in that room. And if I can just help one person, that's amazing. And
Tick.
I'll just
Yes.
show my vulnerabilities. I show my, if people want to think it's a weakness, if people want to think, because it's actually, I'm not bothered, because
It's
we need to
strength.
change. Yeah, we
It's a
need to
strength.
change that mindset of, do you know what? Actually, if he wants to go out there and have a good cry, good on him. If he wants to go out there and show how bad he's feeling, and how how much you are struggling, then someone should be putting their arm around him and going, yeah, no problem. It's good. Instead of that person sat in the corner wanting to scream, wanting to cry, because it only leads to the next point, which is where I got to.
What's your relationship with particularly your son now in terms of mental health, etc.? Do you talk openly about it?
Yeah, so I do now, and obviously he gets it, because he's 19 now,
Okay.
and he's
Okay.
actually just moved off to uni and whatever else. But we're so close. Well, but he he understands it and he gets it. And I always say to him, listen, if you are feeling the stress and strain of university, or as we all know that, they get debted up to the eyeballs and stuff, talk about it. If you are feeling a little bit sad and a little bit lonely, just come and talk to me, or talk to your mum, or talk to someone, because don't bottle it up, because it can soon, like you say, it soon escalates. Luckily, when I was at well, apart from me collapsing every day, so at some point with my vasovagals, 2 and 3 times a day, they've seen me fall down the stairs. He's had to run for defibs and all sorts. But apart from that side, like I said, I always tried to hide my feelings and emotions. And when I did anything, hence the first time I attempted my life, I took myself out the way and I went up to some wooded areas, because I didn't want him to see, and my wife to see, and anyone and my loved ones to find me. And when I jumped out the window, he was out. He was at work. So he gets it. He understands it, and he's seen what it's done to me. So, and I just say to him, listen, I don't want you to ever get to where I got to. Just open up anytime, anywhere, talk to someone, and hopefully it never does. But if it does, then prepare yourself for it, because there is support and there is help, and I'm still
Absolutely.
here. I'm still fighting.
What about your mum and dad, the extended family?
Yeah, it's hard for them as well, because obviously you've got your own family, you've got my own house and whatever else. And we've always been close. So my mum and dad were literally, and my sister, we've always been this real close family, and so much love there and so much support there. And they've supported me from 7-year-old with my athletics career all the way up. And then they hand you
Ferrying
over.
you there
Yeah,
and everywhere to all different
yeah.
meetings and all stuff like that.
Exactly, and they've traveled the world with me, and we were on the track side, freezing cold weather, whether it was whatever day, Saturday, Sunday, whatever, every day for the week they've been there, and we've had so we've always, as a family, we've always had an amazing bond. So I think it hit them harder as well, because especially for my dad, because my dad, I'll be honest, I don't think he understood it. I don't think he got it.
Your dad's old school, isn't he?
Yeah, and
He's old school.
I think he was a bit like, what, my son, what, you feeling like this? And until he actually seen and heard what I was feeling and going through, and then obviously my certain actions that I'd taken, I think he started to understand and think, wow, hang on a minute. And now he's amazing now. He's fully behind it. He's so proud that, they're like, you've gone from doing what you've done to trying to help and save as many other people. And that's, for me, it's nice for me to make them proud as well, because I don't want to go out. I don't do what I do now for people to go, oh, wow, you're amazing. You're doing such a good job. It's not about that. Mine isn't about me now. It's about other people. And but it is lovely to hear my wife or my mum and dad to say, do you know what, we're really proud of what you're doing though, Dean, because we still know you're struggling. I was saying to Tim, I only passed out on Saturday again in the restaurant. Paramedics were called. I was, whatever else. So it's not over for me in terms of this pain and these collapses, and and the family, bless them, having to go through it. But they know that I'm here, and they know that I'm fighting, and they know that I'm in a better space, and we all come together as one
Good.
still. And we will break it and we will beat it.
Tell me about your chronic condition.
Yeah.
How did that
So
start, as it were?
so I popped some discs out in the gym years back, 2008, just 2017. I was a personal trainer at the time as well, so stupidly should have known. And I lifted incorrectly. I was too tired, too heavy, and it was just not prepared for the gym. Anyway, I had the accident, popped the discs out, thought I'd be okay like you do. And then pain got worse. But then by the time the session come, I couldn't even move. Anyway, rushed into hospital, first surgery. And then since then, as I've said, I've had numerous amounts of surgeries, injections, and there's been a lot going on, put it that way. And a lot of failings gone on. And that's as much as I can say, because it's in the
No,
league.
that's okay. But
Um,
in terms of the physicalness of it all, are you susceptible to falling on a daily basis?
oh yeah, I mean,
Anywhere?
yeah, and because I've got something called vasovagal syncope, I don't know if you know what that is, Yinka, but
No,
basically,
please open up on that.
yeah, so it's basically when your body's in that much trauma, pain, that hits a certain level and it switches off, so you collapse. before you can go into anything else, like cardiac
Right.
arrest or anything like, put any more stress and pressure on you. So I could just be chatting to you now, and then boom, I'm gone. And the pain just gets too high. And sometimes I'm not even aware of it. So when I was saying there on Saturday, I was out for a meal. It was my brother-in-law's surprise 40th birthday. We went out, lovely restaurant booked. We were all sitting having our meal. And I remember thinking, I don't feel too well. And the pain was getting too high, and I could feel it creeping up. And I said to my missus and my mum at the time, I said, "Have anyone got any pain relief on them?" I said, "I forgot mine." And they were like, "What do you mean you forgot it?" I said, "I've left it in the car." So my sister went, "I'll go and go and get it in the car." So she literally just left about 10, 20 seconds. And my wife went, "You don't look too." And I went, I'm okay. Next minute, I stood up, boom, gone. Straight through the back of the table, out, down, gone. Out for about 40 minutes. Paramedics were called and all sorts. So, and the stuff, that the paramedics are called, they'll come in and they'll do what they need to do, the checks and the tests and everything
Yeah.
on me. But that's on a daily basis. So, and when it comes, at one point, it was 2 to 3 times a day. It's slowed off a little bit now, but it can be random now. So, which is a
Yes.
little bit more. It's a little bit more of a danger, really, because
Absolutely.
I could nip to the shops or something, and I can't drive because
I'm going to
there's,
say I was going to ask that question. Yeah.
yeah, so I can't do anything. So I'm still heavily relying on people. But I could go into the shops and I could nip into, grab a loaf of bread or pint of milk, whatever, and it can happen. And it has. It's happened in my local supermarket, and it's just too much. I'll just pass out, and I've not known it's going to happen. Um,
Absolutely.
so and in terms of falling, because I've now been told I've got permanent nerve damage, and it's there's falls that are occurring all the time. There's loss of sensations down my legs. You name it. There's a lot still that's going on.
Dean, on that, psychologically, how does that impact you?
Massively, because it's not just about my own household, it's about everything, it's about your life. So in terms of friends and stuff, like, they've seen me collapse, they've seen me look like I'm laying there with no pulse, I'm not breathing, the paramedics are working on me, and we've only gone out for a pint and watched the match. So it's sort of distanced myself from a lot of people as well. So the hurt there for them and for me is, I don't want to go out and do much. And if we want to go on anything like a holiday or anything like that, I've constantly got to think, but what if? What if this happens? What if the pain gets too high? What if there's not enough medication? What about who's going to see me? Because it's quite embarrassing as well. Some people, especially, there's an incident that happened last year where we went on holiday for my son's 18th birthday, and I collapsed around the pool. And I can look back now and I can laugh, because I probably looked like this drunk Brit who's had far too many beers, gone to watch the football and collapsed around the pool. But it wasn't. It was me in too much pain. And then I actually collapsed on the way just before we were going to the airport. I ended up getting rushed into intensive care in a hospital and spending 3 weeks over there, having to have emergency surgery while I was over there. My family had to fly home and leave me, and then I had to get air ambulanced home.
Extended holiday, though.
Well, that's it. Well, that's what I said. But to be fair, the hospitals weren't great, mind. So, but it was like, it's the whole point of, you can't enjoy anything anymore.
Yes.
And I try and make life. So a lot of people don't who see me now. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of talks and a lot of events, and a lot of amazing things that I'm loving doing. But what people don't get to see is the days before, the preparation that I've got to build myself up to get to that point. And
Yes.
then after that, 2 or 3 days in bed, highly medicated up again. Your mind going, here we go again. And then the feeling of, what now? Am I back in bed? And it's just people just, especially social media is great, but it can also make life look a lot better than it actually is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and although I'm doing everything I can, and I'll continue doing everything I can, this is my life now, and I won't let it beat me. And I'll do these events, and I'll do these talks, and I'll do everything I need to do, because although if I don't do them, it's gonna, I'm not gonna feel anywhere that, close to what I want to feel like. So I just have to go with it and think, well, do you know what? If my life is this now, then so be it. Let's make the most of it.
Okay. I'm making assumptions here that because of the attempts on your life, because of your physical condition, etc., that you've lost friends and friendships.
Yeah, a lot.
Or how's
Yes, a
that
lot.
been for you?
Again, like I say, it hurts because I probably pushed a lot of people away. So I think, at the start, I didn't say anything, so people didn't understand it, and they were like, "Come on, Dino, we're going to go out and watch the match. Come on, should we go and do this?" And I'd be like, "No." And then it went from uh, I didn't answer phone calls or text messages, and even to family. I had family who didn't understand what was going on at the time. Was, well, we never see you anymore. Well, we never hear from you anymore. Like, you're not bothered. And I'm like, it's the complete opposite. Actually, I don't want you to see me like this.
Is there a level of shame there or
Yeah,
embarrassment or
yeah, a bit of both. Because although it was embarrassing that I was feeling and looking the way I was looking, to be honest, feeling that, well, I couldn't be bothered. Do you know, it sounds awful, but I couldn't be bothered to get up because it was too much pain, it was too much effort. So if people would say to me, "Come on, can you come out and I don't know," my wife would say, "Just go and have a beer, go and watch the football," and I'd say, "No, like I don't want to." Well, so the so and so's asking you to go, and he's asked you 3 and 4 times now. Why don't you just go? And I'd go, "No." And so flipping it round, they would probably think, well, I'm not going to bother with him anymore because I keep asking him and he doesn't want to go. He doesn't reply to my messages. He doesn't reply to my calls. Um, I've lost a lot like through that. And then certain ones when certain things started to come out when I went missing that time and attempted my life the first time. I think people started to realize that something's going on and something's not right. But then people who were around me, but then I think would feel like uncomfortable, and friends would say, "Oh, I don't really want him to go out because what if he gets one of these thoughts again, or what if he collapses on me? What do I do?"
yes?
One of my close friends, I actually went out with him, and he said, "Come and let's just go and watch." And it was one of the football games was on, and I was like, "I don't want to. I just don't want to go." Anyway, he ended up turned up at the house and forced me out. He said, "Come on, we'll go and watch the first half and come home." And I
Fair play.
literally went out for 15 minutes. I made it in, and I literally walked into the pub and I went, "No, I'm just not well." He said, "Right, come on, let's go." And it was 10 minutes in, and he got me home, got home, and I collapsed as soon as I walked in the house, I was straight out. And he said that he's never experienced anything like it. He said, there was no pulse, there was no breathing. He said, my eyes were open and I wasn't there. And he said he thought I was dead. And it traumatized him. It still traumatizes him to this day. And he's luckily he's a really good friend, and he's
Yes.
like family now. But there's a lot of people who wouldn't be, and I know they aren't as understanding as and considerate as him, and then they have just drifted away because. And you know what? I get it because it's not very nice. My
It's
wife's had
scary. It can be scary for some.
my wife's had to conduct CPR 4 times on me. We've had to have the defib, a number of times over. So if that's happening to you and you're out with the lads or whatever else, and you're having a few beers, and then I just go down, then it's not a very nice situation to be in. So I do get it. I get it, but it hurts me because I haven't wanted to push these friends away. I haven't wanted to push these family members away. It's just happened. And now it's awful to feel.
Is there anybody that, I don't know, in the back of your mind, you think, you know what, after this tonight, let me just pick up the phone and call somebody who I haven't spoken to for a while?
Yeah, and I did, when one of the guys actually who I'd spoke to, my wife had rang round a few of them and said, "Listen, I know he's ignoring your calls. I know he's doing this and I know he's doing that, but he's really not well." He won't admit it, and this was at the time before I was opening up. And as some of them came back in and started speaking to them again. But even now, I look back now, and there's certain ones that I think they've seen. Like this. I open up now, and people can understand, and they see my stories, and they've seen my talks and whatever else. And I think maybe I will reach out a little bit and say, "Look, would you want to do this?" But And I still know that from a physical side, I'm not great, but from a
Yes.
mental side, I'm a lot better
Yeah.
and I'm a lot stronger. And I just hope that people who have been affected by this realize that, that they look and go, do you know what? I do get it, because, he was this, and I hope it never happens to them, because you don't realize that you realize to a point that you're pushing people away, but you actually think that it's best for them not to be around you.
As you say, you don't want to be a burden and all that malarkey.
That's it.
Tell us a bit about your initiative.
So I founded Unbeaten now, and that is one of the tops is on now. And it's not. And I always say this: it's not just a clothing brand; it's a movement. So, but it's another way. The clothing brand was another way for people to talk and open up. So when we were talking earlier about, people don't show the emotions, they don't talk, they don't just randomly come up to you in the street and say, "Yinka, do you fancy? Do you know about this?" It's. I wanted to put it a point that people could talk. So, for example, I went into my local supermarket when I first got my tops printed up, and I got them up, and I was like, right, I'm going out with this top on. I went out with this top, walked into the thing, and the guy tapped me on the back and said, I love that top. What does it, what does it mean? What does it
Yeah.
resemble? Blah, blah. And I told him, I just basically explained, I said, come on, let's go and have a quick coffee. So we ended up in a Costa coffee in there, having a cup of coffee, opened up about what I was doing, what it was about. And he opened up himself and was like, do you know what? I've just come out of the forces and I'm struggling.
Uh,
He said, mate, I'm struggling. He said, it's civvy life is just different.
yes.
He said, I'm struggling with relationships, with daily life, just the routine and everything. And he said, my mind's thinking all sorts. Do I want to be here? And I'm like, this is, and he said, you know what though? He said, and I told him what I'd gone through and what I'm now doing. And he was like, wow. And since then he buys the clothing. He wants to be involved with everything that I'm doing. So for me, it was like, although some people can relate to podcasts like these, some people can relate to sitting and listening to one of my talks, some people can relate to whatever else you want to do, but other people don't like it, and they might just look at your top and go, actually quite like that, and then I want to get involved with that. And that was another thing for me, to just open up and let people talk in a different way. So I'm doing that, and like you say, I'm doing my talks, amazing podcasts like this. I've got, obviously, like I said, I'm an ambassador for Tough to Talk, and I'm now working with a number of companies now, working as an ambassador for them, which is amazing. And just trying to spread the awareness and break the stigma around mental health as much as I can. Because, like we said earlier, the statistics are going up and up, and the
They are.
numbers they're just shocking to read. And I just want people to realize that, you know what, and relate to me, that if he can get to where he's got and go through what he's been through and still be doing what he's doing, then if he can do it, then I can do it.
Props to you. Props. What next for you?
I just want to keep going. I just want to keep fighting and keep making a change. And I always say, we'll never eradicate mental health and suicide. It's impossible, but we can give it a good go. And whether that means me opening up, I've got a radio performance at the end of the month. I've got some webinars that are based throughout the whole of the world at the minute. Ghana, Uganda have been involved,
Brilliant.
because I always say this, doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what color you are, what religion you are, what job you do, whatever it may be. Mental health doesn't just pick and choose its targets. It'll hit you, and it hits you like you've never been hit before, and it's happening everywhere. So, like I say, don't just do this and think it's only in this country, and I'll travel wherever I need to travel. I'll do whatever I need to do just to make sure that nobody gets to the point where I got to.
Excellent. You've probably heard this question, and I probably already know the answer you're going to give me. You're smiling now. But who's the most important person in your life? And you can only pick one person.
It's got to be me now, because although I say my family and my wife, if it was not looking out for myself, so previously I haven't cared about me. I don't really. If I'm here, I'm here. If I'm not, I'm not. But I look at it from a different point now. Like my wife, my kids, they're amazing. And they're the people that keep me fighting and keep me going and thinking, do you know what? They've stuck by me, bless them, and they've been through a lot. my mum, dad, my whole support group. But I never understood that if I'm not here and if I'm not well and if I'm not feeling how I need to feel, then everyone else around me is still going to suffer, and I'm not going to be able to help and support anyone. So it's a tricky question, because I look at it and go, yeah, it's me, because I need to be present, I need to be here, and I need to show the world that if I'm here, then I'm going to help and do the best I can. But then when I look at my kids and my wife and the support group I've got around me, they're amazing.
Do you embrace that the most important person in your life is you? Do you embrace that fully?
Do you know, if you'd have months ago, when I was having like these episodes, and I call them blips, where I might collapse and the pain gets too high and your mind starts to race, and I'd have to get back into bed and lay in bed, I used to think, here we go again, and hate myself for it, and literally think, what is going on? Like, I hate this. I hate me. I hate being in this situation. It's another day that I'm in bed. Whereas now, I flip it around, and you've got to show yourself some care and love and think, do you know what?
Compassion.
I've got to do it. I've got to be, do you know what? This is okay now. Because if I have to lay in bed today, no problem. Or it might take me 2 days. So like, not last week, the week before, I was in bed for 3 days. Couldn't really move. Back on the medication. But I had to go, do you know what? Actually, this is okay now. Because 3 days might be out the week, but then we might have another 7 days, which I'm a lot better. And if you don't be kind to yourself, and you don't care and look after yourself, a lot of people have said this to me, and I never got it at the start, but I do now. It's care for yourself, and then everything else will sort itself out. Because if I'm if I'm tucked up in bed because I'm in agony for weeks on end because I haven't looked after myself, then I can't help all these people that I want to help. So, and if I'm up and running and I'm ready to go and I'm feeling, although I'll never will be in terms of the pain and mobility side and everything else, but if I can be the best I can be at that point, then everyone else is going to get the better deal.
Absolutely. So we're going to finish the Hurt Locker. Have you had tea tonight? Have you had your tea?
I have, yes.
Okay. So you're sitting down or you're laying down with the missus and all of that, and there's a knock at the door, and it's 9-year-old Dean Daniel at the door. What do you say to him?
Yeah. You've just got to believe in yourself, keep going, keep fighting, and know that there's going to be challenges ahead. And I always say that no matter what the challenge is now, there'll be bumps in the road, there'll be blips, but you keep going, you keep fighting, and you will get through it. And like my brand says, I will stumble, I will fall, but I'll keep getting back up and fighting, because I truly believe that, and you keep going, you keep fighting, keep believing in yourself and keep strong, and you can make it through. And it's cheesy, but I'm living proof of that. I don't know how I'm still here. I shouldn't be. Everyone who knows me and what we've just discussed tonight, they'll know and think, how is he? And there's a lot more to this than everyone knows and can see.
Yes.
If I can make it through, then so can you.
Dean, Daniel, you've been an excellent guest on The Hurt Locker. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
The Hurt Locker is a safe space for our guests to openly share their mental health experiences. If you have been affected by any of the content in this recording, then please reach out for support. If it is an emergency, dial 999. If you would like to talk to somebody today, then please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Stay safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.